Welcome, all explorers near and far. You are now watching the Geo Show, and the title of today's Geo Show is Volcanoes of Guatemala. Today's show is brought to you by Learn Around the World, and you can play along with Kahoot. Again, that PIN number is 705402. If you've never used Kahoot before, just go to kahoot.it on any device and punch in that PIN. It's also located in the chat of your window. So we're going to go ahead and test those Kahoots out for everyone. If you are have experience on the Geo Show before, you know that later on in the show we will have a quiz worth points, but don't worry, our survey questions are not worth points. So go ahead and grab your devices. I'll throw that PIN number up on the screen again. That is 705402. Again, 705402. I put that in the chat in your Zoom chat box. So check that out, write it down on the board if you need to. All right, we're gonna go ahead and play. So don't worry if you're not logged in yet. Again, these first couple of questions are not worth points, so you will have time to get logged right in. All right, here we go with today's first survey question for everyone. Where is Guatemala? Does anyone know where it is? Is it in red, South America, blue, Asia, yellow, Central America, or green, Africa? All right, so 29 of you got it correct. So Guatemala is in Central America. It's in Central America. And let's find out exactly where is Guatemala, because you're watching the Geo Show, and on the Geo Show, location matters. All right, so if we take a look at our big blue ball that we live on, we're going to zoom into Central America. So yes, Guatemala is in Central America. It is the country that is just south of, this is Mexico up here. This is Honduras down to the southeast. El Salvador and Belize are all the countries that border Guatemala. But today we're going to Guatemala, and we are going to be visiting 3 locations. Why is Guatemala such a great place to look at when we're talking about volcanoes? Well, there's a whole mountain range that runs right through the entire country, and there are a lot of active volcanoes in Guatemala. We are going to visit 3 locations in this country today. The first location that we're going to visit is Lake Atitlan, not in this exact order. We're also going to visit the city of Antigua, and we are going to hike up an active volcano named Volcan Pacaya. So those are our locations that we are visiting today on the Geo Show. And again, before we jump right into it, why is Guatemala such a great place to study volcanoes? Well, one reason is that it's located on the Ring of Fire. So can everyone say Ring of Fire? Ring of Fire. All right, so if you did not get the chance to watch our pre-show video, that's okay. The Ring of Fire is this area around the Pacific Ocean. And the reason it's known as the Ring of Fire is because, did you know that 3/4 of all volcanoes and 90% of all earthquakes in the world happen somewhere along the Ring of Fire? Can you believe that? And why is it so active with earthquakes and volcanoes? Well, the main reason is something called subduction. Can everyone say subduction? Subduction. Awesome. So subduction, there's a lot of complicated things going on here, but we're going to try to make it super simple for you. So subduction is when we have 2, if you haven't learned this yet in school, maybe you can ask your teacher after the show, but there's something called plate tectonics. So all of the bottom of the oceans and all of the land on Earth is kind of, think about it as floating around on these giant puzzle pieces. And sometimes they bump into each other. And this is what happens during subduction, is when you have 2 puzzle pieces that bump into each other and one slips down under the other one. This is called subduction. And because of that, It makes some really super hot volcano when some ocean water gets mixed into it. And that hot magma rises up and causes a volcano. And this is basically what happens with most of the volcanoes located in Guatemala and all around the Ring of Fire. So when we look at Guatemala, the number varies on who you ask, but at a national park that we went to at the Volcan Pacaya, they listed as 37 volcanoes in the small country. So there's a lot of volcanoes in Guatemala. All right, so I polled everyone before we started, and we're going to start off today with hiking up an active volcano called Volcan Pacaya. So Pacaya volcano. So when I say volcanoes today, their names, and I say Vulcan, that's just how it's pronounced in Spanish. But before we go hike up that active volcano of Pacaya, we do like to take a break in every show and introduce our own camera guest. So first off, I have Mrs. Knowles' classroom. They are from Elk Grove, California. Welcome to the show, guys. All right. And does anyone there happen to have a fun fact about volcanoes today? Does anyone want to speak right into the... All right, so I'm not getting your audio right now, but we'll try again. And let's go over and we're going to introduce our next guest classroom today, which is Mrs. Root's classroom. They are fifth graders from Irvine, California. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi.
All right, and do you have a fun fact about volcanoes, Guatemala, or both today?
Yes.
Go for it.
When the lava produces a poisonous gas that could kill you.
Right. So there are, I'm going to show you today when in just a minute, we're going to hike up an active volcano. All right. And when we get up there, we're going to see some fumes coming out of the volcano. So also, awesome. Great fun fact. So yes, lava comes out of volcanoes. That's that melted molten rock. But also there's fumes and gases that come out of there. If you get too close, it can be deadly for people. We can't breathe some of those gases. So that's why people that study volcanoes, they have to wear these big gas masks and sometimes entire suits because it's so hot to get close to volcanoes where the gases and fumes are coming out. So thank you for all of your fun facts. If you are watching today and you have a fun fact you would like to let everyone know about volcanoes or Guatemala, again, go to our flip grid and you can share those out. I'll go in there and check them out later on in the week as well and give you a shout out there. A couple shout outs. We are changing things up a little bit this year because we have so many classes with us. We can't give everyone a shout out, but I do want to give a shout out to Laurel Mountain Elementary in Austin, Texas. These are random shout outs, by the way. Also, Holden Elementary from Holden, Missouri, and St. Joseph Catholic Grade School in Huntington, West Virginia. Shout out to all of you and everyone that's watching today. And it's time to hike up that active volcano. So I hope everyone has their hiking boots with them today because we're going to hike up Volcan Pacaya. Again, this is an active volcano. So it's time for a couple more vocabulary words. What does that word active actually mean with volcanoes? We're going to mention this a couple of times today. Well, the simplest way to think about it is if a volcano has erupted within the last 10,000 years, it is called an active volcano. If it has not erupted within the last 10,000 years, it is called a dormant volcano, but we think it will erupt again at some time. And if a volcano, we don't think it's going to ever erupt again. That means there's no magma that's coming up into the volcano anymore. We call those volcanoes extinct, or we don't think it will ever erupt again. So active, dormant, and extinct are the three types of volcanoes. Okay, So active, dormant, and extinct. Now, I know what you're saying. 10,000 years. How can that be active if it's been 10,000 years since it erupted last? Well, you have to think the age of the Earth is a lot older than people, so around 4.6 billion years old. So that means if the Earth was the age of a 90-year-old grandma, that means that if it erupted 10,000 years ago, that was only 3 or 4 hours ago, right? So the age of the Earth is a lot different than the age of people. So don't let these big numbers throw you off. 10,000 years ago is not a long time ago in the history of the Earth. All right, so let's jump on our magic school bus. And where is Volcan Pacaya? So just south of Guatemala City, the capital city of Guatemala. We are going to start off in the visitor center at Volcan Pacaya. We're going to hike up through a forest, and we're going to walk up to the lava fields. So these are lava fields. These are satellite images. Don't worry, we're going to go down there and hike around. And we're going to hike down into one of the lava fields next to Volcan Pacaya as we turn around and look back up at Pacaya Volcano. Now, Pacaya Volcano is a little over 8,000 feet, 8,373 feet, actually. The first eruption was 23,000 years ago, and the last major eruption was in 2014. And there's been about 23 eruptions since the Spanish arrived here in the 1500s. All right, well, let's hike up. Well, the first thing you do when you come to the visitor center at Volcan Pacaya is you meet up with a guide. So you have to go up to the volcano with a guide, and we're going to meet ours. Our guide tells us where we're going to hike to, shows us on a map, and points out some of the safe and dangerous areas to stay away from. And after our briefing of our hike, we get to actually hike up. So it is not too strenuous of a hike. It takes a little over an hour or so to hike up from the visitor center. As you can see on the ground, look at all the dirt. Why do you think the soil is so black around the volcano? Does anyone have a guess? Let's go over to over Mrs. Root's classroom. Do you know why it's so dark? Any guesses? You can just shout it out if someone has it.
I think it is gonna be from the lava is the magma.
Right. So if we're real close, we're gonna go up and get really close to some of the lava. So I'll tell you the difference between the two in a second. But it's the ash. So when a volcano erupts, or when Pacaya erupts, ash lands all over the surrounding area, and sometimes it can get quite deep. In fact, in a major eruption in 2010, this whole area had 3 feet of ash that was built up on top of the ground. And that mixes in with the soil and makes it really dark. Some communities actually live really close to the volcano. It's hard to see. This is a hazy day, but there's a community that's actually really close. And some of the villagers here actually cook with the heat of the earth. So they'll dig pits and cook with the heat that's coming up from the ground. How cool is that? As we continue to hike up into the forest on the way to the volcano, don't get lost. There's a couple signs on the way. And if you get hungry on the way, there's locals that come up and they sell vegetables, bananas, mangoes, other vegetables that you can have. And does anyone need to use the bathroom? We'll make a pit stop.
You guys need to go to the bathroom?
No? No bathrooms? All right. Well, here's a little outhouse on the way up that you can use. Anyone? Any takers? No? Okay. You'll keep to your indoor plumbing, I guess. So as we continue up, this is our last major rest stop. There's a local Mayan lady that is in the background. She's selling bananas. Here's a great snack. And this is one of the spots that was really covered up with ash during the 2010 eruption. So right here where we're standing was 1 meter or 3 feet of ash. Can you imagine that? So if you're only 4 or 5 feet tall, that's almost up to your chest of ash that would be built up just right here. as we continue on, our guide stops on the trail, and he starts cutting these branches. And I'll let you guys kind of guess. What do you think he's cutting those sticks for? Just keep it in your mind. You can tell your partner that's sitting beside you if you want to, but we'll reveal that in just a second. Now, after a little over an hour of hiking, we finally come out to the rim of the lava fields, and we get to see Pacaya. Now, Pacaya, if we look up at the volcano, I'm going to outline the cauldron for you. So that's this right here. And so there's lots of fumes coming out of the cauldron up top, and also it's kind of a hazy day. So we'll get some better shots of Pacaya, don't worry. Now we're going to hike down into the lava field. So if we look at this lava field as we pan down from Pacaya, this lava field, and I'm going to highlight all of this lava here, we're going to hike around this lava. And this lava was from the 2010 eruption. Now, does everyone see this, this little shack up here that I'm marking with this arrow? Does everyone see that little shack right there? Yeah? Okay, that's called the lava store. What? That's right. There's a store up on the top of this volcano, and you can buy awesome volcano souvenirs. We'll show you what that looks like. But the volcano store used to be located higher, used to be up here, right around here. But the lava flow from 2010 that was coming down, as you can see, would have burned this lava store up. So they actually had to move the shack over, and that's a little cool fun fact for you about the lava store up on Pacaya. All right, so we're going to walk around the edge of the lava fields. We get a couple more shots. You can kind of, if you look closely, you can see some of the fumes coming out. Just like we learned from our fun fact from our classroom over in California, some of those gases are deadly to inhale and breathe, so you don't want to get too close to them. So we're still up on the rim. We're about to hike down into the lava fields. Now, as we go down, everyone be careful because it's lots of loose rock and it's very slippery going down the steep banks of the lava field. Now, I keep saying this word lava, and we heard earlier one of our students mention magma. Does anyone know the difference between magma and lava?
Just want to shout it out?
Oh.
Shout it out.
Magma's inside the volcano and lava.
Right. So when it's still inside the earth, they're both molten rock. So that means this rock that's been melted, right? It's in this liquid form. But when it's inside the earth, we call it magma. And when it comes out of a volcano, when it erupts, it explodes, we call it lava. All right, again, be careful. We're going to go down these steep slopes here. All right, so now we're approaching the lava fields, and as we get closer, you can see that lava is really, really dark. It's really black. It's usually one uniform color. That's because it cools really quickly. Think about, I like to think of rocks as kind of like cookies, right? You use different ingredients to make different types of cookies. Same things with rocks. Depending on what type of minerals there are, they make different kinds of rocks. But when it cools quickly, all the minerals cool at the same color or the same rate. And that's why we get this black lava rock. Now, I just want to draw a line right here so you can get an idea of how much lava came down from the 2010 eruption. I am 6'1" tall. So look how high this lava is actually stacked up. So there's a lot of it here. And I asked you earlier what you thought the sticks were going to be used for. Well, did anyone guess roasting marshmallows?
No.
Okay, this lava, guys, is from the 2010 eruption. Now, this expedition, I was here last year in 2016, so this is 6-year-old lava that is still heating up this marshmallows. Can you believe that? 6 years old? Now, what happens is when I showed that big pile over my 6'1" height, that lava cools around the edges, but inside the lava field is still, some of that lava is still molten. It's still liquid and it's still hot, and fumes are still coming up. In fact, I even cooked my lunch on the lava rocks. And we put it right on the lava rock. Probably not the most sanitary thing, but I'm still here today. All right, so we get another look back up Pacaya. Let's get a closer look at some of this lava. I'll show you a really up-close picture in a minute. But lava rock is really sharp, super sharp. And that's because it hasn't had time to weather. Can everyone say weather? Weather. Weather is what it's kind of like, weathering is what happens to rocks. Think of it like erosion. So over time, we can take a sharp rock, and with wind and water, that rock can become smoothed down. Think of it like a river rock. If you've ever found a river rock, it's nice and smooth. Well, that rock used to be sharp. And here's the lava store. And again, some of the local Mayan people, they run this lava store, and you can come in here and you can buy jewelry, and you can even look it up online. They have an online site as well, but they make necklaces and pendants and rings and other things made out of the lava that's found right here on Pacaya. How cool is that? All right. All right, let's take a look back at the lava field as we hike back up out of the lava fields, and we will leave Pacaya. Now, one last thing I do want to show you is this is really cool. This right here is hard to see, but this right here is an electricity plant, and it's actually making geothermal electricity. Whoa! Can everyone say geothermal electricity? Geothermal electricity. Okay, so if you recognize that geo, you're watching the GEOshow right now. So that prefix geo means earth. So geothermal electricity. So if you use your thinking powers there, you may guess that it's electricity made from the earth. So lots of times we can make geothermal electricity or geoelectricity out of the heat that's coming up from volcanoes. How cool is that? All right, so that is Pacaya, and a couple of close-ups with the lava here. So you can see actually how sharp and jagged this lava rock is. That means it hasn't had any time to weather. So over time, with wind and rain, those sharp edges will smooth down over time. Again, this 6-year-old lava is still hot enough to heat marshmallows in certain spots, not everywhere on there. And with all the ash, this is kind of gross, but this is when I took my boots off after the hike. You can actually see how much ash and dirt kind of gets into your socks and shoes from hiking up an active volcano. And here's a shot from the 1976 eruption of Pacaya, but again, the last major eruption was in 2014. And that is Pacaya volcano. So we're going to pause for a couple of questions, and if you're watching from the outside, this is interactive for you as well, so you can use your Zoom window chat box to type in your question, or I am monitoring hashtag GEOshow on Twitter as well. You can send in your questions there. We'll start off with Mrs. Root's classroom, and then we'll see if we have our microphone working in Mrs. Knowles' classroom. Do you guys have a question about Pacaya?
Did the food taste good? The food that you cooked on the rocks?
Yeah, well, it was delicious food. It was a local sandwich that I brought up, so it was good regardless. I think it was better because it was heated up, right? I like warm sandwiches. All right, great question. Let's go over to Mrs. Knowles' classroom. Let's see if that mic is working now. All right, I'm still not getting your volume, so you may have to type it in. Also, if you click the little arrow beside your mute microphone icon on your Zoom window, you have some options there, so you may be able to toggle back and forth if you have multiple ones. Mrs. Let's see, Widener's classroom, can you weather down lava rocks by yourself? It would take a really long time to do that. So when you think of like a river rock that's nice and smooth and rounded, that has been weathering for a long, long time. Who knows, thousands of years maybe. Mr. Richards' classroom, does the ground of the lava melt your shoes? Well, it wasn't hot enough to melt. I could feel some heat in certain spots coming up from my shoes, but I was also wearing boots. So maybe if you were wearing thinner shoes, that is possible as well. We also have, let's see, Mrs. Zizuko's room. I hope I'm saying that. Which is hotter, lava or magma? Well, I would guess if you had to compare the two, as soon as lava comes out, it's going to start cooling really quickly. So I would say magma. And how hot is magma or lava? So it can range anywhere between 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit up to 2,120 degrees Fahrenheit from the U.S. Geological Service, that number there. Let's see. We also have Mrs. Parent's classroom. Woohoo! Hello. Oh, they were saying they were excited about getting the shout outs. All right. And why is lava so hot? Coming from Mrs. Suzuko's. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Well, we're talking about the heat. Magma comes from outside or from inside the earth. Inside the earth is super duper hot. And also, when you think about rock, everything has a melting point. So you get to a certain temperature, and think about how hot you have to get a rock. I don't think we could put a rock on a fire, like a campfire, and get it hot enough to melt a rock. So you have to get extremely hot temperatures to melt rocks down. So when it's melted into magma, it is extremely hot. Great questions, guys. Okay, we're going to go ahead and keep it moving so we can get a chance to get to everything. I do want to bring up, I asked a local a question, so I asked the man on top of Pacaya, because I get this question a lot, and is it scary to live near an active volcano? And this is what he had to say.
Well, my name is Fernando. I'm from Guatemala City.
And where do you live now?
I live on top of an active volcano. It's called Pacaya, Guatemala City, Central America.
And are you afraid to live by the volcano?
No, at all. This is such a beautiful place that I invite everyone to experience this beautiful energy of the volcano.
What do you want to do when you die?
I want this day to spray my ashes on top of the volcano.
Yeah.
This is a very special place for me.
And how long have you lived in?
Live around the volcano for 5 years.
5 years?
5 years. Matios. Matios means thank you in Maya language.
Okay, Matios. So if you guys want to learn a little bit of local Mayan, Matios is how you say thank you. So remember that one. Can everyone say Matios? All right, we'll keep working on it. All right, so we're going to keep moving on again. We're going to go over to check out a different region. I do want to say over to Mrs. Whitcomb's. Amy asks, how can you tell when the next volcano will erupt? Well, we can't really tell. We can tell if we think it's gonna be sooner or later. As remember, 10,000 years is only a couple hours in Earth, in an Earth's life. When we think it's going to be soon, it could be next year. It could be 100 years from now. So an active volcano, we can't really pinpoint it. But the way they do that is they can take GPS readings, so elevations, and volcanoes, when they're going to explode, they'll start to kind of balloon up, if you will. So even though it's a mountain of rock, it will start to kind of balloon out. That means the pressure is building up inside before it explodes. All right, great question there from Amy. And we're going to check out another region of Guatemala. But to do that, I want to know what you want to talk about next. All right, we go to Antigua, Red for Antigua, blue Lake Atitlan. All right, most people are saying Lake Atitlan, so we're going to head to Lake Atitlan next and check it out. So Lake Atitlan is an ancient volcano, and that's what formed the lake. So this giant lake that we're looking at, it's about 340 meters. That's over 1,000 feet deep. This giant lake was the cauldron. That means it's that's what's left after the explosion, the kind of bowl-like area that bends down. But there are three smaller volcanoes that are around the ancient volcano, and they are Volcan Tomilan, Volcan Atitlan, and those are both over 10,000 feet. And next to Volcan Atitlan is what the lake is named after. This last erupted in 1853. And then we have Volcan San Pedro that is next to both of those. And I actually went to the little village of San Pedro right beside Volcan San Pedro. And I rented a kayak to take out on the water for you guys so we can check out the lake. And voila, here we are, paddling on Lake Atitlan. Now, as far as the local culture, Lake Atitlan is one of the most populated areas of Guatemala or Central America with Mayans. So Mayans are the indigenous people that lived in this part of the world. And we can see a couple of young Mayans over on the rocks there. And they still come and wash their clothes in the lake. And we're going to paddle a lot around the point here. Okay, so Mrs. Schneider's classroom wants to know what temperature is the lake. The temperature was quite cool. I'm sorry, I did not take a reading of it, but it is quite a cool lake. And so we can see Volcan San Pedro right here with the cloud cover on the summit of San Pedro. And if we look off in the distance, we'll zoom in there, and I'll pause it right through the clouds. There we can see Volcan Atitlan that is really far away from where we are at. It doesn't look as tall, but Volcan Atitlan is taller than San Pedro. You can see how high. Look at all around the lake. And the cool thing about this lake is the lake is actually getting deeper. Believe it or not. That's because there's no rivers or anything leaving the lake. Everything drains. All the water that falls in this area drains into this lake. So it's actually getting deeper and deeper. And this community, this is San Pedro, and again, at time to time, if this volcano were to start an eruption, they would have to evacuate here. And again, if you look at these trees, why are these trees dead? Well, these trees were once on dry land, but because the lake is getting deeper and the water is getting higher, these trees are not water trees. They don't like to live in water. So once the water gets high enough, the trees on the edge die. And it's actually, Lake Atitlan is a popular place to come scuba diving because you can visit old buildings and other structures that humans had that are now underwater. All right, and Mrs. Parent's class, they are asking, was the lake lowland or was it a volcanic crater? So yes, we're on top of a giant volcanic crater, and it's filled up with water. So this was a mega volcano that it erupted 84,000 years ago. And as we can see the boat traffic and the stand-up paddle boarder earlier, this lake provides a lot of tourism today for the local people. So great there. And we are going to jump right into, and to show you Antigua really quickly, just to show you one other example of an area in Guatemala that has a lot of volcanoes. And then we will play our quiz, because I want to make sure we wrap up so everyone has a chance that has to leave early to go. All right, so Antigua is the old capital. This was the original capital of Guatemala. However, because there were so many earthquakes and volcanoes throughout the years, they actually moved the capital of Guatemala to Guatemala City. All right, Antigua is a city of about 50,000 people. And as we zoom in to the city here, we get to see there are 3 volcanoes that surround the city of Antigua. So the closest one right beside the city is actually Volcan Agua. So if you are familiar with your Espanol, then it is water volcano. So this is water volcano, and it is 12,340 feet tall. Next to there is Volcan Fuego. Volcan Fuego is fire volcano, and this one is 12,346 feet tall. This is 200,000 years old, this volcano, and it's extremely active. In fact, sometimes it erupts weekly. Volcan Acatenango is over 13,000 feet, and this one last erupted in 1972. Now, I did not get a chance to hike up these volcanoes, but I met a man that runs a hiking company that takes people up to the top of these volcanoes, and he lent me this video to share with you today.
This is the spine of the beast, Volcan Fuego, one of the most active volcanoes on planet Earth. Right now we're walking on what we call the knife ridge. You've got about 1,000 feet drop on this side, 1,000 foot drop on this side. This is a gnarly place to be. And if you look up ahead, you can see the very active cone. Sometimes it just blows. No warning, you just duck and run for cover.
September 13, 2012. The 12,500-foot tall Fuego explodes, blasting lava rocks and ash thousands of feet high, and forcing the evacuation of 30,000 people from the villages surrounding the nearby city of Antigua.
If you can imagine this entire cone blowing apart, it shoots huge chunks of lava rock, sometimes the size of cars, straight up into the air, thousands of feet over your head. This is a belch from the guts of the earth. Volcan Fuego is one of the biggest. We're sitting at about 12,500 feet, going right up to the summit of Volcan Fuego. When there's a large eruption, ash belches out of this volcano. It can obscure and block any plane travel anywhere near this volcano. This gas, this is about as close as you would want to get, unless you had a gas mask. These are fumes coming from the guts of the earth. Chemicals, sulfuric gas, very, very dangerous stuff.
Guatemala's imposing Volcan Fuego is a daily reminder that volcanic weather plays a big role in the long-term forecast for planet Earth.
When this angry thing goes, there's an eruption. The first thing you do is you feel it in your chest. Then you hear it.
All right, so that is the old capital of Guatemala, Antigua. And what's really cool about Antigua is I met a teacher in Antigua that their school was at the bottom or base of Volcano Fuego, and they actually have volcano days. So like you may have a snow day at school where you don't go to school because of snow. Well, they actually have volcano days where they don't go because of a volcano. That's how active Fuego is. And it's not because of the lava, it's because of the ash. It's because ash rains down on everything. Okay, so what we're going to do, there's a lot of questions. I'm going to get to as many of them as I can, but we are approaching the 45-minute mark. So we're going to go ahead and play our Geo quiz for today. And then I'll jump and answer as many questions as I can afterwards for as long as you guys can stick around. But for classrooms that need to run, we're going to go ahead and play that Geo quiz. I hope you were paying attention because the winner of today's Geo quiz will get a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World Studios. Teachers, if your students or students win the Geo quiz, it is your responsibility. Please go to learnaroundtheworld.com/prize and make sure you get your address to me in that Google form. If I don't have your address, snail mail does not work. With that said, we're going to go ahead and play our Geo quiz. So let me bring up our Kahoot. So grab your devices. Remember, every question from here on out is worth points. So make sure you're logged in. That Kahoot ID, that game pin again at kahoot.it is 705402, 705402 if you have not logged in yet. And just to double check, over in Mrs. Root's class, let's make sure technology is working. Can you guys see my Kahoot screen?
Can you guys say yes? Yeah!
All right, so we are good to go. We are going to play our game. I'm going to give everyone 10 seconds to get logged in, so get logged in there. As I do that, Mr. Richards' classroom wanted to know why were the trees growing in the lake if they were underwater? That's the thing, those trees were there first, and then the water rose above the tree line or above the bottoms of the trees. That's how that happens. Great question there. All right, keep your questions coming in for after the quiz, but right now, let's play. All right, what is the major cause of volcanoes on the Ring of Fire? Is it red, subduction, blue, hotspots, yellow, Mother Earth is angry, or green, supernatural causes? All right, it is subduction. All right, Valos is our leader. Great job. David is second, and Lex N is in third place. Keep it up, guys. How many volcanoes are surrounded Antigua, Guatemala? Is it red 1, blue 3, yellow 2, or green 4? All right, it is blue 3. 3 volcanoes are surrounding the city of Antigua. All right, we still have our same leader. Lex N moves up to second place. Great job, Lex N. Keep it up. When was the last sizable eruption, the last major eruption? Volcan Pacaya. Was it in 1978, red, blue, 2010, yellow, 1964, or 2014? All right, it was 2014 was the last major eruption. Great job, guys. We still have our same top 2 students. What caused the formation of Lake Atitlan? Was it red, a glacier, blue, humans, yellow, an earthquake, or green, a volcano? All right, it was a volcano, a giant volcano. Great job, guys. And our last question, make it count. Are you guys going to let our leaders never lose the lead? Is Guatemala located on the Ring of Fire? Red, no. Blue, yes. All right, yes, it is located on the Ring of Fire. Today's winner is... All right, Valos is today's winner. You win a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World Studio. So if you are his or her teacher, make sure you head to learnaroundtheworld.com/prize to enter in your school address so I can send them their postcard. It does not work without an address. Okay, for everyone else, if you have questions that I do not get to, if you have to run, go throw them in. I'm going to put up a questions grid on Flipgrid. Just go to flipgrid.com/GeoShow, and I'll jump on there and answer questions that we did not get to possibly. For everyone else, if you have time to stick around, let's jump to some of your questions. Let's go over to Mrs. Knowles' classroom. Let's see if that mic is working at all right now. Just go ahead and shout out to me, guys. Yeah, I don't have it. All right, well, better luck next time. All right, so we'll jump into some of our questions to some of our classrooms that are still here. Let's see, Mrs. Okay, Jaden wants to know, what is the most recent eruption to date? The most, like in the world? I would probably sometime yesterday or even today. There's eruptions happening every day around the world. I can tell you the last ones in Pacaya, for example, the last major one was 2014. Now, there have been smaller ones since then, but that was the most significant one. And Fuego, Fuego erupts pretty regularly, so I would have to go on there. Mrs. Knowles' class has some questions over on Twitter, so I'll check there. Let's see. Over on Twitter, we have, are there any specific types of wildlife that live only near volcanoes? Coming from Mrs. Whitcomb's classroom. I don't necessarily, wildlife can't live too close, but there are, when we talk about organisms, there are bacterias that people that study volcanoes, scientists that study volcanoes, they do get really close to test some of these bacterias and study those. Okay, they're on look for moss. Great. Let's see. Jolie wants to know, which are more dangerous, a lava flow or ash? That is a fantastic question. Most people, if I polled everyone here today, I guarantee you everyone would say lava. But really, the most disruptive to humans is the ash. And that's because, for example, my father-in-law was in Guatemala during the 2014 eruption, and he was up in Guatemala City. So all plane traffic shut down. There was so much ash. And from the 2010 eruption, that was the biggest one in recent times. That's the lava that we walked on. Well, that put a foot of ash on Guatemala City. And can you imagine a whole city that's under a foot of ash? I mean, the cars mess up, the public buses, subways, like everything shuts down. So it's it's not good for regular everyday life, right? Let's see. Are there volcanoes on other planets? That's a fantastic question. I cannot speak to other planets because I have not studied them, but I would assume to say yes. So if it's a rocky planet, so there's gaseous planets and rocky planets. I know there are storms like hurricanes and stuff on other planets. There are other planets and moons with oceans and frozen oceans and all this good jazz. So any rocky planet would have the potential to have a volcano if the inside of that planet had molten whatever that planet was made out of in its rock. If it had molten, it was hot enough, the pressure was enough, there was enough fumes on the inside, it needs to let that out somehow. So I would make an educated guess to say yes, there would be. Let's see, Cassidy wants to know, have many people died during these eruptions in Guatemala? And Amy wants to know, have you ever experienced an eruption? So first, Cassidy, I don't know. I would have to assume, yes, people have, but I don't know what we would think of as many, right? And so over time, yes. I would say probably most likely earthquakes have killed more people than volcanoes. And earthquakes are really dangerous. In fact, The largest earthquake in the past century just happened this past Friday, I believe, right off the coast of Guatemala, down off the coast of Mexico City. It was at 8 points, I think. I forget. It was strong. So a big earthquake hit on that subduction area. So all that we talked about today just happened. A big, very large earthquake just happened a couple days ago in Guatemala, off the coast of Guatemala and Mexico. So yeah, definitely check that out. To Amy's point, have I experienced an earthquake? An eruption. Pacaya did not erupt while I was on top of it. I did see fuego erupting from Antigua, but it was a small one. It was just some fumes. But that is common with fuego, is very small, regular eruptions. Great questions there, and coming in. And I'll do just a couple more here. Let's see, Moses class. When a volcano erupts, why doesn't the lava burn through the volcano? Coming from Mrs. Noel's class. I'm assuming you mean like burn like back down through the rock. And you would have to get, I mean, let's say that if you, I wish I had a rock with me. Yeah, if this were a rock, you know, the lava, it takes a lot of heat and pressure to melt rock. So those are the two key ingredients here. One is heat, the second is pressure. So you need heat and pressure to melt rock. I mean, it's not like an ice cube. Like, we have to get extreme temperatures. So when lava is just sitting on top of another solid rock, well, one thing is going to happen. One is that lava is going to cool really quickly compared to what it was below the earth in its magma form. And two, like, there's just not the pressure there as well. So it would be very hard. Maybe some types of rock, maybe some types of sandstone, possibly. I don't know the exacts with that question. But it's a great one to research. Look it up. Let me know what you find out. Let's see. Do we have any others from coming in? Let's see. Mrs. Whitcomb's classroom wants to know. Okay. Yeah, for sure. So shout out to Mrs. Cops, fourth graders over in Anaheim, California. Go Angels. Is that right? You guys have the Angels? All right. And let's see, Kimberly wants to know while we're there, if it's calm on the lake by the volcano. So yeah, so Lake Atitlan is calm, except when I rode out to San Pedro, had to go on a boat that was actually kind of wavy. So it depends on the wind. It's all on the wind. And how thick is the wall of the volcano? So I'm assuming you mean if we take the classic cone shaped of a volcano. So most volcanoes in Guatemala are what we call stratovolcanoes. Can you guys say that with me? Stratovolcano. So a stratovolcano is many, many layers built up of lava and ash, lava, ash, lava, ash, lava, ash. So think of it as just many layers. It's built up over time. And so those walls are going to be thick. I mean, it's a mountain, right? I don't know is the answer, but it's going to be very, very thick. And then Michael wants to know, how long have I been studying volcanoes? Well, my job with the GEOshow is I go to locations all over the world and I study all kinds of things. So it's volcanoes, it may be Komodo dragons, Asian elephants, the Mayans, Mayan ruins. So I am not a scientist and a professional with that would know every answer with volcanoes. So I study it as an educator to present to you, and I really focus on location. So specifically, with all my research has been into Pacaya, has been into Fuego, these ones that I have been to, but a lot of that is similar. A lot of those volcanoes are similar to other volcanoes that you will find, especially on the Ring of Fire. Stratovolcanoes are the most common volcano that's going to be along the Ring of Fire. Very typical. Great questions coming in from everyone. We are rounding out into an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me on the Geo Show. Go look into Guatemala, great country. If you ever get a chance to go there one day, do it. Fantastic country. And if you have any other questions, comments, or other, check out our grid over at flipgrid.com/GeoShow. Put your question, comment, or fun fact there, and I will respond to you. All right. Well, keep exploring, guys. Have a great day. Bye.